So in a few words, first, my name is Ghislain Rodrigues. I'm a software engineer. I've been programming for about 10 years, give or take, work-wise and also on the evening. I've been using Vim really full-time for about 3 years, so quite new on the lifetime of Vim. But yeah, I quite like tweaking it, updating my conf and whatnot, like most of us, I guess. So tonight I will talk to you a bit about undoing your changes, redoing changes, which is like kind of relatively basic stuff, but also with problematics it can bring and how to solve some of them. And then finally I will finish on the Undotree plugin, which is not by me, just plugin that I found quite useful and not as known as other big ones. So I feel like sharing a bit about it to solve some of the problematics I will talk about just before. And finally questions and contact link for the end. To undo changes, most of you know, I guess. So you can undo your changes with the U key, which just goes back in time on your changes. So nothing rocket science around that. To redo will be Control R. Same. This one is not. I guess most of people who know to undo know how to redo work. There is a third one which is a bit less known, I guess, or a bit trickier to use. It's capital U, which, like lowercase u, will undo the change, but it will actually make a new change in your change history, which will be like the invert of the last change. And so it will count as a modification. If you do it twice, it will undo the undo and add changes back and forth, a bit like a git revert, which does a commit, which is the invert of the commit you are reverting. I'm not too sure when on a daily basis it could be used, to be completely honest. Maybe more like when writing more scripts, but it happened a few times that while coding, accidentally pressing caps lock and trying to undo, and it does some stuff which are not what we expect, where basically changes are undone and redone while actually modifying the file. So it's kind of good to know that this one exists, just to know how to deal with it. So the undoing and redoing is quite straightforward and very common with many editors, Vim or not. But we'll cover 3 specific problematics which exist a bit everywhere. The first one would be once you did quite a few changes in your file, if you want to go back to a specific state in the past while editing. So how to do that relatively quickly and conveniently. Maybe you want to compare with how your file was a bit before. Another one would be when if you did some changes and actually you want to bring your file back to when you saved last. Or maybe when you saved before, because you might have saved the file multiple times and you want to discard all the changes since some save that you did. But for example, those changes haven't been committed, so doing a git checkout of the file wouldn't work because you still want to keep some stuff. So same, how to deal with that with Vim and what feature it can offer to use it. And finally, I will talk about branching, which is the main one, at least in my daily usage. So what are branching when you work in the scope of editing a file, and how to deal with these, and how to use that. So first, to go back to a specific change, You can undo. That can work, but if you've been editing for a while, it kind of can be a bit hard to find when exactly it happened, and it's a bit like guessing and searching if the change is findable in the past, which is not always the case. You can, if you look at the message bar and the status bar of Vim, each changes has a number. So you can actually jump directly to a change in the past. So if I go in, if I do it, whatever file, there. So first change, then this is another change, and final line. If I undo, if you look at the far bottom of the file, you have 3 fewer lines before number 3. That's the number that you can use. So you can see it back, so before 1 here, for example. So if you want to go when the first line has been added, you can do undo and 1, which brings your file straight to this change. But still, you have to know basically when the change happened to jump to it. And also, n doesn't have to be in the past. So if you are here, I'm at the change 1, so I can as well do undo, and that was the change 3, I think, here, and undo to go back to the final state of my file, which is kind of going back to the future in your changes. But that's not very convenient to have a global view of when your file changed and how to jump properly in this history of changes. The second point is if you want to go back to when you saved your file, last save, or maybe even a previous save. For the last save, you can quit the file just and reopen it. Don't have the reflex of doing WQ because that will defeat the purpose. But that's not great. That's not cool to have to quit your file to get it back to a state which interests you. You can also undo until you see the status line which indicates if you have changes or not. So here, for example, my file is saved. So if I add some changes, whatever, we see at the bottom right that I have a plus in red, which indicates that my file has been changed. My status line is a bit modified. On the default one, the plus will be on the left and same color. But still, if you undo, this indicator disappears. So you can like undo, and until you see that, okay, it's not modified, but it's very like hit and guess, and it's not great still to manipulate it like that. And finally, the other problematic, not a problem, is branching. So if you do some changes and then you undo, and you do other changes, the original changes you did will become between inaccessible to hard to access to get back. If you saved your file, then you can quit it, get it back, but that's a bit that's not convenient. Many editors most of the editor, I guess, if you undo something and do something back, the original change would be pretty much lost. So can't we help can't we get some help with that? It can happen like very accidentally if you undo something and accidentally you press a key in normal mode which goes in insert mode, like an accidental O instead of a control O to go to change position. It makes a modification and you changed your path of changes, which then it's a bit unfortunate. So actually Vim keeps track of all these changes and you can go back to these branches. And I'll show you that if you look at the changes number that I showed you previously. So let's quit the file, start from fresh, and let's do a first change which adds a new line where we could do some more programming stuff, but that's not the point really. Then another change we put it in uppercase, and actually I will undo that and just put the first letter in uppercase. So how to go back to the state where I've put the change, the whole line in uppercases. So if you undo completely, if you look at the numbers at the bottom, so there was the change 1, the change 3, which brings that, and it jumps the change 2, which was not listed. So it's actually possible to just do undo 2, and we get back to this stage. So basically, Vim keeps a whole tree representation of the changes, except that with just basic U and Control R, we just go through the last path that we followed. But getting the actual change numbers, it's possible to go through those alternative paths that we made and access them. But still, you have to have a pretty good representation of what you did to know how to find back this change. And I don't know for you, but I don't keep that in mind when I edit my file, and I don't know what it looks like. So you can use it with the undo command. And yeah, if you just did it as I did to change one line and you just want to go back to the last branch, it's easy to do. But if it was a few minutes ago or hours, if you've been editing your file for a while, it becomes quite awkward and not really manageable. So that's where this plugin comes in. So first, I will give credits to who they belong, because as this plugin is not mine. Then I will demo it and show what it does and how to use it and the different features. It's a very straightforward and very simple case. And in the end, I will share the mapping I have to use it because often when we find a new plugin, we install it, we try it, and 2 days after we just forgot about it because we did something else. It was not in our daily workflow, and it just leaves our muscle memory. Well, it didn't even have time to come there. And then we end up with a VimRC, which is 200 lines long with dozens of plugins, and most of them we just don't use them. So this plugin has been written by someone nicknamed MBBill with the GitHub URL provided, and it's basically so as I said, a visual representation of the changes history of your file. So it will. I mentioned that Vim keeps in memory all the changes as a tree, and it will actually show a tree. And you can go through that and basically jump wherever you want in those changes. So I'll give a quick demo and go through the whole 4 commands of this plugin. So in this file that I modified with some changes, you can display it with undo show, which was that. You can, if you really don't want to use your mouse, you can undo focus, which will move your focus on the top left window, which is the actual history with your current place. And you can, let's say, go here and with enter, change the file to the state you want, or to wherever, whichever change. If you are in a there, on the bottom left, you will see kind of a diff of each change, which can be useful. I don't often look at this part, but it says it gives what the change is about. If you save your file, it will indicate to you that the file has been saved. So to come back to how to change the file to our last save. Well, with this one, it's easy. It's just to, let's say we did something else, and yeah, automatically saved. If I want to go to my previous save, I just come here because I see it's been saved here. The capital S means it's the last save. The other S's are just previous saves. And I come here and I have my file, and that's way more straightforward. And we see that if I was in this change and I undo, here we don't see it, so let's hide that. Yeah. So I was at the change 4, and if I undo before 4, 2, and the third one doesn't come through, and we see indeed because the third one is on the other branch. So basically you can use that. You can also use your mouse here to just jump to a change if you wish. So it's not like a plugin which is life-changing that I use like on a strong workflow every day, but it's quite useful if I make a mistake and I want to come back straight to some specific changes. It gives a better navigation and representation of my file and my changes, which is quite convenient and like a safety net, really. Just gives an extra layer to recover work, which is quite cool. So the 4 commands, so as I showed, was show. You can back hide it with hide. You can toggle it with toggle and focus to go on it. So that's pretty much it. Then you just navigate either with the mouse or just with normal cursor navigation and enter to change your file. And finally, the mapping I'm using, so I'm using space as leader, but that's a detail. I have leader U to toggle it, so quickly I can get it at hand and being able to use it quickly without having to type some strong command. U for undo, which makes it kind of easy to remember. So yeah, that's what I have in my VMRC, if anyone's interested. Yeah, that's about it. If you have any questions about it. Yeah. Mate.
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
It slightly felt like you missed a slide. You were talking about ways of getting back to the last saved version of a file. And you were sort of showing a few unsatisfactory ways, and I just wondered if you had a satisfactory way. Is that the one? Yeah, go back to back to a save point. That's what I meant.
To say, okay. So that was 2.2, and here.
That was the one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So undo until the status line indicates no changes.
Yeah.
Awkward 2. I just felt like you were about to give us like a version that wasn't awkward.
Actually, no. For this point, I don't have any magic change for it.
Maybe someone does.
With could walk to, which would bring you back to the version on disk, right?
Yeah.
Which is the last save, which works definitely for this case, indeed. So just column E and and exclamation mark to discard any local changes, which works for this case. If you want to go to a previous save, that would become a bit more tricky. But for this case, definitely yes.
I thought, yeah, I know about ebang, but I was wondering if there was a command that you were going to tell us for like going back in different past save versions.
No, that's the thing. On this point, I would not have any magic trick, and that's typically in those kind of cases that I'm very happy to have this plugin to allow me to quickly go in those situations where it fits the role quickly.
Before you went to the plugin, did you try like the earlier and the later things? So if you completely screw up and you want to get back like 15 minutes earlier, you can just do earlier 15 minutes.
You can. I haven't used it much. I know about it. I haven't used it on a daily basis. Okay. If you did a lot of changes, you have to be also, I guess, quite accurate in time, but you can get an approximation and jump around. Indeed, that you can use so the earlier, and you provide a unit in time, right? Yeah. Which change the file to the state of at the time you provide, which can work indeed.
Thank you. So I started using this recently, actually, and sometimes I'm not quite sure what's the logic that kind of resets the tree on Undotree. Like sometimes I expect to find my stuff there, like the tree, but like it's not there. So it could be because I'm closing the buffer, or like, do you know what's the logic such that we lose the tree? Because I'm not quite sure which one.
If you close your buffer, you will lose it. Yes.
If I close the buffer.
So
okay.
If I come here, so here I have my changes. Let's get another file, ts, whatever, for example. So my t is on my buffer 1. So if I close with, oopsie, I'm caps lock. See, buffer delete n1, so which will close the first file. It's been unsaved, so let's save it. That's fine. Okay, and here I don't have it anymore. And if I reopen it, or even if I just go back to this buffer, because as long as you don't close Vim, you can still access it. But if I go back to the file, the tree has been wiped completely. So yeah, if you close the buffer, you will lose the tree. If you close the file, you will lose it, unless you have persistent changes enabled in your configuration. Do you know about those? So you have an option to basically keep the changes you do when you close your file. So if you reopen it, you can then undo to the tree will be kept in memory.
Yeah.
I don't have it because it happens that I use as a mark the moment when I open the file, so I can't undo at all. So the root of my tree, I use this mark. So I haven't really experienced with the persistent saving, but yeah, you can definitely do that if you want to keep that in memory.
And it's an Undotree configuration, or is a Vim configuration?
Vim, yeah.
So just save the.
Undo
okay.
Persistent, yeah.
Undo persistence.
And would it be here?
Yeah.
No. Does anyone remember the name of the exact option? Second. No, hidden will allow you to hide the buffer even if you haven't saved it. Undo file. Set undo file. And that will allow you to do that. And you can maybe even configure in where you want to save this history. Yeah, undo there. Yeah.
Thank you.
I was just checking it out. Is there a way to, so say you were in Git and you wanted to, so this is like a branch structure as well, right? So you wanted some stuff from someone else's branch, but not all of it, and you would cherry pick things across. Is there an equivalent of that? Or is it just, it sort of reifies the whole buffer
no,
back as it
it's
was?
way cruder, let's say.
I mean, that would be difficult.
As far as I know, there is no way to pick changes like that. Yeah, no, I wouldn't.
I guess you just go back
know
to the
of any.
previous state and copy it, and then put it on the top. It's just a bit more cumbersome.
Yeah, that could be useful, but I don't know of any way of doing it. There is an extra thing which allow you to join two changes and make them as a single change, but that's a bit different and used maybe more in scripting. If you do two manipulations and you want them to be considered as a single change when you do U to undo, you have a undo join which allow you to do that, but that's really kind of a squash thing, or amend rather, the equivalent of amend, a git commit amend in Git, but that's about it as far as I know.
It still looks really good.
Yeah, that was a great presentation, by the way, thanks. A bit off topic, but I noticed it looks like you're using a Vim plugin to do your slides. Do you mind telling us what it is? Because that looked pretty cool and I'd like to try it.
Not really.
Or am I reading too much into it?
No, it's Vim, yeah. So it's just text files.
Okay.
I wrote, so they are I made some press files, which is a file type that I made up last week.
Okay.
So I just created a syntax file and a Vim file to have a couple of mapping. For example, I have double space to go to the next slide.
You should release that as a plugin. That's pretty
It's
cool.
on GitHub.
Okay, cool.
So, nope, that was not what I wanted to do. Here, on my GitHub, in my .files. At the moment, it's completely in the middle of my .files, but I can definitely extract it in a separate repo.
Yeah, that would be cool.
With pleasure.
That would be cool.
Yeah.